Learning opportunities during book reading, using class concepts to identify and reflect on quality interactions while reading books. During this session, we will talk about the value of book readings and how different interactions can be observed during this time using the class. Specifically, we'll look at opportunities to expand engagement, promote critical thinking, expand learning through feedback, and language modeling strategies. For each, we will think about different ways to implement these strategies into practice. Finally, as we move through the different types of interactions, think about your practice and critically evaluate areas that you are doing well, as well as those areas for growth. From this module, we will examine how interactions can foster children's development while reading books. We will reflect on strengths and areas for growth in teaching practices, and we will find opportunities to expand children's interest and ability to learn. As early educators, we know books are an important part of our classroom. From interesting books in the library area to reading stories during circle time or morning meeting, we use books all of the time. But why are these books so important? Take a minute to look at the list below and find a few of the reasons books are important for children. Identify responses that correctly answer the question, book reading is important for children because. For this activity, all but 2 of the choices were reasons why we should continue to use books in our everyday routines. Reading books to children can spur creativity and helps them develop pre-literacy skills that are critical for later academic success. Books also help children become interested in their own learning, exposes them to new information, and can help develop emotional connections with adults. Finally, books are important because they help children develop language skills, an important component to later literacy development and academic success. Perhaps you can even think of more reasons why books are so important for young children. Let's take a minute just to talk about what exactly the class and what does it measure. So the Classroom Assessment and Scoring System is a research-based classroom assessment tool that measures the quality of interactions between students and teachers and among students. It's organized into 3 broad learning areas called domains, and with that, there are 10 dimensions within them. Each dimension has indicators that evaluate the quality and quantity of different teacher-child interactions. Throughout this module, we're going to look at different indicators within the following dimensions and think about their role during reading books. So instructional learning formats, look at that dimension, concept development, quality feedback, and language modeling. Instructional learning formats focuses on the ways in which the teacher maximizes students' interest, engagement, and ability to learn from lessons and activities. In instructional learning formats, we look to see the ways in which the teacher actively engages students so learning is made possible and is interesting. 2 indicators that can be readily seen during book readings are effective facilitation and clarifying learning objectives. Think about a familiar book that you may read with children. What are some things that you can say or do to really get the children involved? Does it make a difference between just going through the motions and reading the words versus really getting involved yourself? Are there questions you can ask so that they are actively participating as well? Can you think of a time when you saw a book come to life because you or the teacher changed the voice to match the characters, asked questions that got the children involved, or read the story in a way that really helped to keep the children interested? Facilitating the materials in a way that expands student interest is critical because children who are engaged are also ready to learn. While effective facilitation can be seen throughout the day, it is really important when reading stories to individual children or during group times. Watch the clip and think about where you saw the teacher expanding children's involvement. What did he do? How did he help get the children involved? Also, thinking of your own teaching or others' teaching, what do you do to help the children stay involved?
Suddenly, there was a flash of lightning and a roar of thunder. A strong wind blew the letter out of his hand. Peter chased the ladder. He tried to stop it with his foot, but it blew away. Then it blew high into the air. What happened to the letter?
It got away from his hand.
Why? Why did it get away from his hand?
Because the lightning scared him away, and the wind blew it on.
And then the famous letter. And landed, skipping across the hopscotch game. The letter blew this way and that, Peter chased this way and that. He catch it.
He did it so fast.
What is so fast?
The map.
The letter?
No, the wind.
The wind was so strong. It blew the letter so Peter couldn't catch it.
Being planful and intentional about expanding children's involvement and interest is key in facilitating their learning. So planning, thinking about where can you include children's involvement? What are some questions that you can ask? And how can you really make the story more interesting for them? Perhaps finding puppets, allowing them to act out different parts of the story. And then during the story, how do you keep them involved? Look at yourself. Say, am I enthusiastic? Am I interested in the story as well? And if you do see the children losing interest, is it okay to stop the story and find another time to finish it? Clarifying learning objectives. Children learn more when they know what they are doing and they know what they're supposed to be learning. This can be done before beginning the activity, during the activity where they may get a little off topic, and after an activity to help them think about what they just did or learned. Watch the clip and note how the teacher guided children to what the activity or the learning objectives were.
Really important thing.
And I know what this kind of flower is. It's a snapdragon. I'm gonna have some of those in our new backyard.
Oh, yeah.
Because they snap open.
They snap open. Maybe that's what we're talking about. But there was something we were learning about and talking about at school that was important about how everything looks in this room all together. I'll give you a hint. You did a really great job remembering all the rules when we were there about being careful with the plants and the fish. But if I make a line down the middle, I wonder if that reminds you.
Symmetry. Symmetrical.
Clarifying learning objectives during a book reading. Next, read the scenarios and determine how the teacher is guiding children to the learning objectives. The choices include advanced organizers, so focusing children on the learning objectives before beginning the activity, a reorientation statement, so guiding children back to the activity if they get a little off topic, and summary statements, so helping the children think about what it is they just learned at that end or upon completing the activity. Example 1. Ms. Wall asks the question, what do you think happened to this snowman? And she receives many guesses, including one about a snowman a child made at home. Several children become excited and start talking about the snowman they made over the weekend. She gently guides them back to the story by saying, that sounds really interesting, but let's look at this page. What is happening here? By refocusing the children's attention on the learning objectives or the activity, the teacher is using A, advanced organizer, B, a reorientation statement, or C, a summary statement. By guiding the children back to the activity at hand, Ms. Wall used a reorientation statement. Example 2. Before beginning the story, Ms. Sato says, today we're reading a familiar story. When you hear a word that starts with P, raise your hand high in the air. By focusing the children's attention on the learning objectives, Ms. Sato is using advanced organizer, a reorientation statement, or a summary statement. By focusing the children's attention on the learning objectives before beginning the activity, Ms. Sato used an advanced organizer. Example 3. Mr. Araya reads the last page, closes the book, and asks questions like, what was one thing we saw the caterpillar eat? And how did the caterpillar change from the beginning to the end of the story? Asking the children to think about parts of the story helped them think about the book and its plot. By asking the children to summarize the book, he used A, advanced organizer, B, a reorientation statement, or C, a summary statement. Mr. Araya used a summary statement to help the children think about what had happened during the story at the end of the story. Thinking about your practice in your classroom with your students or children, why is guiding children to learning objectives helpful or beneficial to children's learning? Do these strategies or interactions sound or feel familiar? What could you do to help you consistently clarify activities or learning objectives before, during, or after activities? Concept development is really about pushing children to think versus recall information. Instead of asking children that have a true right or wrong answer, concept development refers to questions and activities that encourage children to think critically and apply that information. This can be hard work for both teachers and for children, but it's also very important. Encouraging understanding and promoting thinking skills translate to lifelong assets where children can apply these thinking skills to new experiences and to learning. While all concept development indicators can be used during book reading, we are going to focus on analysis and reasoning and integration. Encouraging children's critical thinking skills. This can be done by asking how or why questions, asking the children to problem solve, or asking them to predict. Let's watch the clip and think about, where did you see children having to use their higher order thinking skills?
How many jobs, Charlotte, how many jobs are there up on this board? Ready? How do you know that? You're smart. Should we count them? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Olivia, you were right. 8 jobs. Now should we count how many friends there are here today? Okay, let's start with Felix. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. How many friends are there? 14. And how many jobs did we say there are? 8. Are there more jobs or more friends? More friends, yeah. So is everyone going to get a job today? No. There are only 8 jobs.
Promoting thinking during book reading. Imagine you're reading The 3 Little Pigs to a group of children. During the story, you ask a few questions that push them to think critically. First, create a question that encourages the children to predict or guess what might happen. It can be something that might happen in the story or something that would just be completely hypothetical. So perhaps starting it with the prompt, what do you think would happen if? Next, think of a question that you can ask the children to analyze or problem solve, starting with, what else could the pigs, and then finish it. Possible and very creative questions in The 3 Little Pigs could be, prediction questions could include, what do you think would happen if the wolf was really tired? What do you think would happen if the pigs tried to be nice to the wolf? What do you think would happen if one of the houses was made out of stones? What happens if it was made out of Legos? A couple analysis or problem-solving questions could be, what else could the pigs have done to make their house sturdier? Or what else could the pigs have used to prevent the wolf from blowing it down? A big piece of concept development is asking the children to take knowledge they currently have and think about it and apply it to new situations. Being planful and intentional is key. So planning for concept development, perhaps previewing books and creating critical thinking questions. You could take a post-it note and write those questions right in the book and stick them in there, so as you go through the story, you have them ready for you. But there's also opportunities for in-the-moment concept development. So thinking about, as you read the story, where can the children guess or compare or evaluate or predict during the story? Integrating new information to previous knowledge is basically trying to connect and build off what children have already experienced. So think of it as kind of a string that you're tying new information that they may not know a lot about and connecting it to things that they've already experienced. This creates one large base of knowledge versus a lot of individual isolated pockets of information. Let's watch the clip and think about, how did the teacher connect new information to what children have already learned? And how can this help children's learning and continued understanding? So why is this important for children?
What we protected? What did we need if it's snowing out?
Yeah, cover.
Do you remember the toadstool that we made? It protected us from the rain, right? Because where was it?
No.
Where was the toadstool? Underneath, we sat on top of it, right?
Yeah.
Where did it go? We went under it. So what do we need? Where do our cars need to be? A roof to go over it so our cars are underneath.
And content in a book reading to what children have already learned. Read the caption taken from a book and pull out ideas, concepts, or information that the children may have already learned. From there, create a sentence that explicitly connects the two together. So the caption, on a humid summer night near a creek along the road, Jorge and Indy gazed at the stars and the moon and tried to find animals in the stars. So using the possible connections, how could you connect human to what children may already know, creek, gazed, or maybe even animals in the stars? The example provided includes human. So a statement could be, remember how we talked about weather during circle time? It's when humid is when the air feels moist and maybe a little warm. So integration. Does this seem like an easy or more difficult strategy to use? In your classroom, thinking about your practice, what would help you be more intentional about connecting new information to previous knowledge? And again, thinking about why would we do this? How does connecting old information to new information help children learn and think? The dimension we're going to cover is quality of feedback, which assesses the degree to which the teacher provides feedback that expands learning and understanding and encourages continued participation. Within that, we're going to talk about the indicator providing information. One key piece of quality of feedback is that it's generally in response to what the children have said. So instead of just the teacher presenting information, it's the feedback that the teacher gives to the children in response to what they have said. Providing information in quality feedback expands learning through providing this information. It could be including new information, clarifying information, or providing specific feedback to a specific situation. Let's watch the clip and see where we see the teacher providing feedback to the child.
Look at all these different lines, Max, that they have to do. Construction takes a lot. Some straight ones and some goofy ones. We don't have one of those on the, when we made our list of all the lines we know, we didn't have one like that. We didn't have to change our sign and add some of those goofy lines. You make those zigzag lines. That reminds me of this part of it. Right in between the colors. You were making their shoes out? Or no, you see the zigzag lines on this fish shoes.
And do a matching activity that takes the type of information provided using the class, either expansion, so adding or expanding information, clarifying, so clarifying or correcting information, or providing specific feedback. And we're going to take those different types of information and we're going to connect them to a direct quote on the right-hand side. Take a sheet of paper and connect which ones you think are aligned. One expansion, that actually is connected to the last bullet on the right-hand side. The quote is, "You're right, it is a lizard and it's a special type of lizard called a chameleon. A chameleon can change color to match its background." In that example, the teacher recognized what the child said and then provided additional information or expanded upon the child's statement. The clarifying example was the first one. So the teacher said, "You're close. We may sometimes see giraffes on a farm, but more often we will see them in a zoo." So again, without kind of putting down the child, the teacher recognizes where the child's at, but corrects the information in there so the child doesn't walk away with bad information. And then finally, providing specific feedback. The quote is, "I like how Indy tried to find the information by herself. She looked on this page and noticed that the boy only had on one shoe. She then decided the shoe must be his." So really giving individualized feedback to a specific setting. Thinking about your classroom, especially thinking about times when you're doing book readings or you're looking at stories, where can you add information to children's responses? What could you do if you hear an incorrect answer? How could you help correct it or clarify it in a meaningful yet kind way? And then finally, what can you say in specific situations to give the children as much meaningful feedback as possible? Maximizing success in these situations includes waiting, listening, and taking time to provide good feedback to children. Another dimension that we're going to be talking about today regarding book reading is language modeling. It captures the quality and the amount of teachers' use of language stimulation and language facilitation techniques. The specific aspects or indicators we're going to look at are open-ended questions and advanced language as they pertain to book reading. The goal of language modeling is just simply building language, either through hearing complex language or allowing children the opportunity to practice it. Pretty much any question that requires a more than one word answer is considered an open-ended question. There still is a quality aspect to questions, but by definition, open-ended questions are just questions that require a one-word answer. Let's watch a clip and then think about where you heard the teacher ask open-ended questions. Did you hear any questions that require the children to answer with more than one word? And thinking about the children and their development, what does learning look like for a child who has many opportunities to hear and answer these types of questions throughout the day?
Which one are you doing? Can you tell me about it, Rosie? So I can write it down? You're using all kinds of lines. What should I write about? It looks happy. A what? A striped fish.
There's a lot of problems.
And these are the stripes right here.
Of the very familiar story, Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears, identify open-ended questions below. So on a sheet of paper, mark which ones are open-ended versus close-ended. First, how do you know the baby bear was hungry? What is another name for porridge? Tell me what is happening in this page. How did you know the title of the book? Have you ever been in a bed that is too big? And what is Goldilocks doing on this page? First sentence was an open-ended question. The third, even though it wasn't technically a question, it was a statement that encouraged the children to use more than one word. The fourth, how did you know the title of the book? Asking the children to put language together to answer the book. And then the last one could be as well, asking the children to describe what exactly Goldilocks is doing on the page. And in questions in books. Planning is key. So thinking about where can I add these questions during a story? And how can I remember to ask them? Also in the moment, how can I make this more of a practice? So making and using these open-ended questions as much as possible. Language modeling, advanced language. This is going to be the final piece that we're going to talk about today in regards to quality interactions during book reading. Books are a great place for children to hear new vocabulary and ideas. However, just hearing the words isn't enough. For children to really learn and understand new words, they should be defined and explained in context. So watch the clip below and think about what words in the clip might have been new for the children. And what did the teacher say or do to help the children with these new words?
Right. You know what else we can do? You try and find a flat side here, like this side that's straight, with no bumps on it. Then you can line that up. You match that up with the other sides that are straight. So you have this thing until those straight sides are lined up together. Is that where we're going? Do we see the straight side with no bumps? We gotta find another straight side to line up right here. That's a bump, yep. So you gotta put a bump in there.
Using a quote from the integration activity, look at it this time and identify words that may be unfamiliar to children. From there, create a short sentence that helps children understand what the word means. So the example here is, on a humid summer night near a creek along the road, Jorge and Indy gazed at the stars and the moon and tried to find animals in the stars. So perhaps if the children didn't understand or the word humid may be a little unfamiliar to them, the teacher could say, humid is when the air has a lot of water in it. It feels moist against your skin. Now do the same with creek and gazed. These are the things we've talked about today. Planning is key for advanced language. So anticipating what words may be unfamiliar to children. Is it easier to talk about the new words before beginning the book or as we read this story? And then asking yourself, how will I remember to stop and help define those words for children? A suggestion or an idea could be maybe read the books beforehand and use a highlighter for words that you want to explain to help you remember to go ahead and explain those during the story. Book reading provides us with many opportunities to embed different types of high-quality interactions that we know help children learn. Thinking especially those that help encourage participation, so facilitating books and clarifying what the learning objectives are, helping promote critical thinking skills, so asking analysis and reasoning questions and connecting new information to old, expanding learning and understanding during books, so providing information that expands, clarifies, or provides specific information. And then finally, using book readings as an opportunity to encourage and model new language. So asking questions that require a more than one word response, and introducing and defining advanced language. Thinking of your practice and of your classroom, what do you see yourself already doing during book readings or other types of the day? Are there strategies that are new or unfamiliar to you? Of these, what are some areas that you'd like to work on or learn more about? And thinking about how to become a better user of these strategies, what kind of supports will you need, or what kind of supports would help you become more effective?